Hey there, my name is Alex, I am the Silver Mont, and this video is a guide to all of the fights and encounters in the normal version of the level 80 Eden raid series in Final Fantasy XIV. I'll be covering just what you need to know, and if there's a particular fight you're after, then check the timecodes on the screen now or on the seek bar. That out of the way, let's get to it. Mixing things up this time, instead of fighting the Prime version at the end, we'll be fighting Eden Prime at the very beginning of the raid series. Hour-long ultimate attack aside, the boss also has Spear of Paradise, a 2-hit tank buster. Vice and Virtue is a similar buster which targets the tank and off-tank with align AoEs, so make sure tanks aren't standing too close and not too near the group. Pure Light will have the boss move to one corner and then do a huge AoE. Safe spot is behind the boss. Eden Prime will also combine this with a bunch of other smaller AoEs at the same time. When the boss spawns adds, they will spam raid-wide AoEs and also cleave in front of them, so burst them down ASAP and make sure you're not standing in front of them unless you're a tank, and one tank for each add. Ready for some time manipulation? The main instant death situation in this fight involves falling off the edge, which is a bit of a theme for many of these fights going forward. Shadow Flame is the tank buster and it targets both tanks. The boss will spawn little minions that you need to avoid, but you can't damage them. Stay out of their path by standing behind them. You'll want to stand on or under the boss for Doom Void Slicer. Spell in Waiting is a slightly confusing mechanic to explain, but it's very simple in practice. Effectively, the boss will affix Spell in Waiting to other spells, causing them to not detonate immediately after they are cast. For example, if the boss uses a Spell in Waiting variant of Dark Fire, instead of it detonating once the cast is finished, it will detonate once the countdown above the player's head finishes ticking down. Also watch out for the large pushback ability, Hand of Erebos. The boss will also use a gaze mechanic, but this time it will be on a player, so instead of turning your back to the boss, you must turn your back on the marked player. The Warrior of Light has an alarming memory. Rip Current is Leviathan's tank buster, and its align AoE indicated by a tether, so the main tank should move it away from the group. Watch out for Tidal Wave, which spawns a spout of water on one side of the arena, which then pushes you a great distance away. Virtually identical to the variation used in Shinryu and seen in other fights. Other than an array of easily avoidable AoEs, you need to be on the lookout for Undersea Quake, which involves Leviathan smashing the arena floor away. The first time Leviathan does it, the left and right sides of the arena will explode, so stand in the middle. The second time, he will destroy the middle, so move to the edges. Fun fight. As has been the theme so far, make sure you don't fall off the edge. Titan's back, but a lot more fun than his level 50 version. Stone Crusher is his tank buster this time. His bombs are back too. He'll spawn several, one of them will grow. Whoa. Stand away from the big bomb. When Titan spawns 2 meteor-style boulders, one of them will be cracked. Stand behind the one that is more intact to avoid Titan's follow-up attack, Seismic Wave. Titan also has a leap attack that has a pushback when he lands, so you want to stand almost directly under where he'll land so the pushback doesn't send you off the edge. Titan has 2 transformations to watch out for. The first one causes his arms to expand, and then he'll do Massive Landslide. To avoid this, stand directly in front of him until the attack goes off, then immediately move to the side as the follow-up will be in front of him. His other transformation can only be described as an ATV, will involve him zooming around all over the place. Avoid this by standing to the side of him, as if you're in front of him, you'll get GTA'd. But make sure you're on the side closer to the center of the arena, as you do get pushed back every time he moves. Other than this, he does a lot of AoEs that involve watching the floor carefully as they are tile based, but easily avoided. Ramuh's tank buster is given the appropriate name, of crippling blow. When Ramuh brings down lightning rods in the arena, you must always run to the smallest one to avoid the huge AoE. See the lightning or static orbs that are spawning constantly? You want to grab one or two of these, as they'll give you a defense boost to help survive Ramuh's surging waves of lightning. The line attacks that come from the side of the arena have knockback and a built-in knockback animation that's very long, but otherwise they are easily dealt with. There will be an incredible number of AoEs in this fight, so you're going to need a lot of mobility, so be careful when you are committing to hard casting. Garuda will frequently spawn blue circles on 2 players in the group. When this happens, there needs to be 2 people in each circle, but the circles themselves can't stack on each other. Having only the marked player inside when it detonates will almost certainly kill them. Watch out for simple tethers and AoEs, and when Garuda slices a line through the centre of the arena, she will turn that segment into a kill box, so don't step in it. Ifrit will spawn in not long after, and use the dangerous Hands of Hell ability. This will attach multiple tethers to a single target. These must be grabbed by other players, so the tethers are spread out, 1 per player, preferably, avoiding the fatally high damage they would do on a single target. When Ifrit spawns orbs around the edge of the arena, the safe spot is right next to him. Fighting the 2 of them together is chaotic, but as long as 1 tank takes each and they are spread out, you'll soon be onto the final phase. This one combines various attacks, but the main thing to be aware of is Conflag Strike, which has a very long cast time, but the boss will cast many AoEs during it, so you need to be constantly moving. Welcome to the worst fight in the whole game. Unshadowed Strike is a tethered tank buster like Leviathans. Words of Motion will shoot line AoEs in a delayed fashion, so you need to wait for the first ones to fire and then move to that spot to avoid the second. Then you'll notice the boss combines this with red and blue portals. This time, when the birds shoot out, they will go through one of the portals and then come back out one of the portals on the other side. If they went into a red portal, they'll come out one of the other red portals. There's also black and white bird shots. During these you need to be hit by the opposite colour, so if you are marked white, get hit by the black birds, and so forth. The boss has a double stack marker, so split the group to take half each, and Away with Thee will teleport you after a short amount of time, so just make sure you aren't going to teleport into oblivion. After the ads which you must nuke down comes the annoying part, combining the red and blue portals with the black and white bird attacks. The principle is the same however. If you are marked white, then get hit by the black attack. So now you are marked black, meaning you need to get hit by the white attack. So if the black attack went into the red portal, you need to get hit by the blue portal follow-up. Or you can just stick to a party member with the same mark as you and hope they know how to do it. Or pop your tank in vulnerability and hope for the best. Thankfully, we're following that miserable fight up with one of the coolest fights in the game. First up, Shiva has 2 versions of Redress, a gaze attack where you must look away from her as she goes through a magical girl transformation scene. This is how she swaps between her 2 different modes in the normal fight. After transforming, she will do either Axe Kick or Scythe Kick. For Axe Kick, move away from Shiva. For Scythe Kick, move under her as it's a donut AoE. The way I try and remember this is Axe for away, A for away, Scythe for Shiva, S for Shiva, go close to Shiva. Biting Frost hits in front of Shiva in a huge cone. Driving Frost is the opposite, hitting behind her. Later on, she'll combine these attacks with Mirror Mirror, which will mimic whichever one Shiva does. For example, if she does Driving, which hits behind her, the mirrors will mimic it and you need to stand between them. Whereas if she does Biting in front of her, then move away from the mirrors. Shiva's ad phase involves preventing orbs reaching the center point, and every wave there'll be tethers that 1 or 2 players must take, the raid being split into 2 halves, 1 tank and healer for each. Once you return to the arena, Shiva will use a multi-meteor mechanic with Holy. As you retreat from the center where it spawns, she will move them to the edges, meaning you then need to move back to the center. Finally, when Shiva uses Path of Light, you will need players to stand in the circles, but not the marked players, who will be hit with cone-shaped AoEs. They should be standing away from the circles and the rest of the group. Zero Form Particle Beam is the tank buster. This one is an AoE, so don't stand near the tank. When the Cloud of Darkness changes the floor panels, you need to make sure you don't stand on them too long. If the panels turn red, all players must step off of it to a new one. Kill the Cloud ads before they reach the boss, and when she uses Flood of Obscurity, stand close to the boss, but make sure the knockback doesn't launch you into the AoEs. These AoEs will then tether onto each party member. You simply need to run away, stretching the tether. Wide angle phaser will have the boss shooting yellow tethers into the edges. Move to that edge. Rejuvenation Balm is purple tethers. You need to stand in the middle. Shadow's Edge is the tank buster here, and the Shadow Keeper can combine it with Umbral Smash, putting a debuff on the tank, so you may need a tank swap. Forward Implosion hits in front of the boss, Backward Implosion hits behind the boss. There are also shadow versions of these that follow the same basic logic as demonstrated. The boss is able to spawn shadow clones, which then jump around the arena. Make sure you go to where the tethered shadow is when it stops moving. Move away from the boss when she begins standing up. Then watch out for wide AoEs that hit you either side, left or right. And when the boss prepares to go on all fours again, you must watch out for the pushback so you don't get sent into the walls. Tank buster here is Powder Mark, and shortly after the tank will explode, so don't stand too close to them. The boss then has multiple variations of his key abilities. Burnt Strike is a line AoE. The red version will knock you away, so stand right on the edge of the AoE. The blue version will have an immediate follow-up that is larger than the initial strike, so stand away from it. Make sure you're a good distance away from the line. Finally, the yellow version will follow up with a bunch of smaller AoEs. As for his other attack, Bound in Faith, the red version needs you to stack on the targeted player. The blue version will apply a damage overtime, so stick on regen, bloodbath or other healing to survive it. Turn of the Heaven spawns a bunch of circles around the edge. The red version will cause the red circles to have a bigger explosion radius, likewise for blue, so just stand between the opposite colour. If he does red, stand between two blue circles. If he does blue, stand between two red circles. As the fight goes on, he'll do more combinations of these abilities, as well as hiding around the halfway point. Run around the edge until you see where the clones are aiming at, and run to the safe spot. Welcome to the end. Formless Judgment is the tank buster, and it hits both tanks. See that red arrow the boss does during it? That seems to be the tank buster marker for most things going forward, which means I no longer really need to tell you what the tank buster is, because in most cases they have their own dedicated marker now. Nice. This fight is really just a memory test, which will be commensurately hard or easy depending on how good your memory is. In essence, the boss will junction various primals and then unleash abilities based on which primal they junctioned. You can either look at the colour of the tether or the picture the tether is coming from. Ramuh's ability explodes around the boss, so move away from her. Leviathan's hits to either side, so the safe spot is in the centre. Garuda's is a plus shape on the boss, so the safe spot is diagonally. Whereas Ifrit hits diagonally from the boss, so the safe spot is left right of the boss. What about Shiva? Well, junctioning Shiva turns the floor into slippery ice, which the boss will combine with a huge left or right side hitting AoE. Titan junctioning spawns the bomb boulders that you know how to deal with. Stay away from the huge ones. The boss can junction 2 primals at a time and store them a while before releasing, so you need to remember which combo it has. For example, if the boss does Ramuh and Leviathan, then you need to stand in the centre, but away from the boss. It's a lot to keep in mind, but simple once you do, and really, as long as you can remember which combo the boss is doing, you'll have no problems. And congrats on beating Eden. I'll see you next time for Endwalker.